Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone. I am Rafia Tariq and today we are discussing an important topic that often goes unnoticed: how to identify and avoid toxic positivity. While staying positive can be beneficial, sometimes forcing positivity can prevent us from acknowledging and processing real emotions. To help us understand this better, I am joined by ChatGPT. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rafia. I'm really glad to be here. Yeah, absolutely. Toxic positivity is kind of that pressure we feel to stay happy or upbeat even when we're struggling. So I'm excited to unpack this with you and give some practical tips on how we can balance positivity with being real about what we feel.
To begin, what exactly is toxic positivity?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So, toxic positivity is when we insist on only having positive emotions, dismissing or invalidating any negative feelings. So, instead of saying, I'm really struggling, we might be told, just stay positive. And that kind of shuts us down. So, it's a kind of surface level positivity that doesn't let us fully process what we're going through.
How is toxic positivity different from healthy optimism?
That's a really important distinction. Healthy optimism is about maintaining hope and seeing possibilities even when things are tough. But it also acknowledges and accepts the full range of emotions. So you can say, this is really hard, but I believe things will get better. Toxic positivity, on the other hand, just ignores or pushes aside those real struggles. And that's the big difference.
What are some common examples of toxic positivity that people encounter in daily life?
Yeah, definitely. So, some common examples might be things like saying, just think positive, or everything happens for a reason when someone is grieving or going through a tough time. Or even things like, you just need to cheer up, which can make people feel guilty for having those real emotions. So, it's all those little dismissals that sound positive, but actually invalidate what someone's going through.
Why do people sometimes feel pressure to always appear positive, even when they are struggling?
Yeah, that's a really human thing, right? A lot of times we worry that if we express our struggles, we might be seen as weak or a burden. And especially with social media or culture that really values happiness, there's this push to look like everything's fine, even when it's not. So that pressure can be really strong.
What emotional impact can toxic positivity have on mental well being?
Yeah, it can have a really significant impact. It can lead to feelings of isolation because you might think you're alone in your struggles. It can also cause a buildup of stress because you never get to process what's actually happening. And over time, it can even contribute to things like anxiety or depression because you're denying your real emotions.
How can someone recognize when they are engaging in toxic positivity themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One way to recognize it is if you catch yourself dismissing your own or others' difficult emotions by just saying it could be worse or just stay positive. If you notice you're avoiding deeper conversations or not giving yourself space to feel, that's a big sign. And the key is being curious and gentle with yourself, not judging, but just being aware.
What are some signs that a friend, family member, or colleague may be using toxic positivity?
Yeah, absolutely. So signs might be things like them always brushing off serious concerns with phrases like, it's fine, just be grateful, or look on the bright side. They might avoid talking about any real challenges or even downplay your emotions, making you feel like you're overreacting. So if you see that pattern, it's worth checking in with them or yourself.
Can you give any real life example?
Yeah, for sure. So imagine a friend who just lost the job, and instead of really sitting with those feelings, another person might say, don't worry, you'll find something better soon. Just stay positive. And kind of gloss over the real stress they're feeling. Or maybe a colleague is dealing with burnout, and someone just says, you just need to stay motivated instead of letting them rest or acknowledging how tough it is.
Okay. Why is it important to acknowledge and accept difficult emotions instead of suppressing them?
That's such a key point. When we acknowledge those difficult emotions, we give ourselves a space to process them, which is really healing. It helps us avoid that buildup of stress or anxiety, and it also makes room for self compassion. So when we face those feelings, we can actually heal and move forward in a more whole way.
How can we support someone who is going through a difficult time without dismissing their feelings?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a big part of it is listening without trying to fix things immediately. You can say something like, I'm here for you, and it's okay to feel sad or angry, and just give them space to express themselves. And you can also check in regularly so they know they're not alone without feeling like you have to force them to be positive.
Can you give any 2 to 3 examples?
Of course. So, one example might be if a friend is going through a breakup, you could say, I know this is really painful, and I'm here if you need to talk or just sit in silence. Another example might be a colleague who's overwhelmed. So, you say, I can see you're really stressed. Do you want to take a break or just have a moment to breathe? And a third example to be with a family member who's grieving. So, you might say, I can't imagine how hard this is, but I'm here to listen, and you don't have to put on a brave face for me.
What are some healthier alternatives to phrases like just stay positive or everything happens for a reason?
Yeah, and that's a great thing to focus on. So instead of saying just stay positive, you might say, I know this is really hard and I'm here with you. Or instead of everything happens for a reason, you could say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to support you while you figure this out. It's about staying present and honoring someone's experience.
How can practicing emotional honesty improve our relationships and personal growth?
Yeah, that's a huge benefit. When we're emotionally honest, we build trust because people know we're not just putting on a front. And for ourselves, it lets us be more in tune with what we really feel and need. So it deepens connections, but it also allows us to grow because we're not suppressing who we are or what we're experiencing.
What role does self compassion play in avoiding toxic positivity?
Yeah, self compassion is really key. When we treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, we give ourselves permission to feel whatever comes up without judgment. So instead of forcing a smile, we can say, This is hard, but I'm allowed to feel this way. And that makes it easier to be real, both with ourselves and with others.
Can you explain this?
Absolutely. So self compassion is really about treating yourself like you would a good friend. When you're struggling, rather than pushing away those feelings or criticizing yourself, you acknowledge that it's okay to feel this way. You remind yourself that everyone struggles sometimes, and that creates a sense of safety inside. So instead of feeling like you have to fake positivity, you give yourself that space to be human.
How can parents and educators encourage resilience without promoting toxic positivity?
That's a great point. So, one way is by modeling emotional balance themselves, showing kids and students that it's okay to feel disappointed or frustrated. They can also encourage kids to express what they're feeling, ask open ended questions, and validate those emotions. And they can guide them to problem solve or find hope without dismissing the real challenges.
What practical steps can people take to create a healthier emotional balance in their lives?
Yeah, that's really important.
Before we conclude, what is the most important message you would like to leave our audience regarding toxic positivity? ChatGPT, what is the most important message you would like to leave our audience regarding toxic positivity? Thank you, ChatGPT, for sharing your insights on identifying and avoiding toxic positivity. Today's discussion reminds us that positivity is valuable, but true emotional well-being comes from acknowledging all emotions, both positive and difficult. By allowing ourselves and others to feel, express, and process emotions honestly, we can build stronger relationships and healthier lives. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope this conversation encourages you to embrace authenticity and compassion in your daily life. We will see you next time with another meaningful discussion. Until then, take care of yourself,